What's up? Now I wanted to go over shading in the face, since tomorrow I'm going to introduce that in my class. I like looking at these pictures here from Andrew Loomis's figure drawing for all it's worth. Breaking the face into planes like this is very, very helpful. Not only does it help give the idea of 3 dimensions to your faces, but it helps simplify different shapes that you can see in the face. It also helps with shading in general. Kids in my class have worked with shading so far in still lifes and things like that, so I think this is going to be really helpful for them. I'm just going to give a general idea. So of course I got my head, break it off a little bit, give him a little bit of a chin, give him some cheekbones. Now we know the process. Give him the jawline. Okay, so I'm actually going to construct the face using value as opposed to the general way that I construct it. I don't suggest doing it if you don't really know where the landmarks are. I just happen to know it because I've drawn an okay amount of faces. Main thing, first off, is knowing the 3 different values: highlights, midtones, and shadows. So let me make a little scale at the bottom here. It's going to be very helpful. I think any artist has done this plenty times over. All right, we have our midtones here. We got our shadows. Then we have our highlights. So you guys get to see my terrible handwriting. Shadows. Cool. So being able to distinguish which value is where before you start really getting into shading is going to be really helpful. Blocking different areas out into these 3 shades is the basis for shading. From there, you can kind of blend things in, make smoother transitions, make hard transitions. Regardless, it all boils down to having balance with these 3. When I say balance with these 3, that doesn't necessarily mean having equal amounts of these 3 in areas, but it's knowing how much of shadow you should have depending on the light source, okay? So if I have light source coming straight at the face, I'm going to see a lot more highlight on the features around here. If I have a light source coming from this side, I'm going to have my highlights coming from here, okay? I'm just going to do a very, very basic kind of light source. So it's a little bit in front of him, and then on top of that, it's above him as well. So I'm going to draw a little lamp here. Da, 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 da. Represents our light source. There's a shape in the face. It's like this shape, kind of. All right. And all around here, we are going to have a lot of shadows. Okay. All right, cool. Cool. So we have a lot of shadows here. On top of that, we might have a lot of shadows right here as well in the eye socket, right below the brow ridge. Okay. And on top of that, we might have a lot of shadows underneath the nose. and then might kind of spill into the lips. And one of our darkest shadows is lips, the lip itself, and then underneath, okay? Of course. I think these are the general areas where shadows tend to be heaviest, okay? Now for midtones. Midtones is where there is some shadows, but they're not as heavy as other areas that we've seen. Okay. So that's going to be more so in the actual eye socket. It's also going to be located along the bridge of the nose. Okay. It's going to be located along the cheekbones, maybe a little bit around the upper lip as well. Okay. It's going to be a little bit here on the temple. And then there's going to be a little bit here above the brow ridge. It's going to be a little bit between the eyebrows as well. It's going to be a little bit underneath the lower lip, like here. And then there's going to be a little bit underneath the chin right there. You might even have a pretty deep shadow right there. There's going to be a little bit around the corners of the mouth. Now if you see here, I already have a face kind of appearing, yeah? And I didn't even plan it out. These are just the general areas where light is hitting from the top. Since I know this brow ridge comes out, okay, there's going to be heavy shading underneath it. And since I know the cheekbones come out, again, you're going to have more shading. But where the light hits first is where your highlight's going to be. So that's why the nose tip has a pretty strong highlight, while the bridge can start to taper off into midtones. Okay, lower lip extends a little bit past the upper lip. The way that the lip is shaped is like this, kind of. Okay, so there's going to be shading here. There might be a little bit of shading here, but for the most part, light is hitting that lower lip like that. Same thing with the nose, okay? There's going to be heavy shading underneath the nose, but since light is hitting the tip of the nose, the highlight's going to be right on top, okay? Now if I'm looking at the eyeball, right? This is their eyebrow. Light's hitting here. So you're going to have a lot of highlights on this brow ridge / the forehead, while underneath the brow ridge, that's where it gets really dark, okay? But since it's coming out again, you still have a little bit of light going past that, hitting this area, creating some midtones there, okay? That's actually a way that we evolved so that sun doesn't really get in our eyes. So that's how you need to think, is where is light hitting on these planes of my face to where value is going to show. And once you have these basic areas down, that's where you can kind of start to add in more details, add in more specific value areas, okay? And the more details you add, the more it starts to come out, starts to come together. But you also got to know when to stop, because you don't want to add too many details, because then your picture starts to become unclear. You want clarity in your drawings, a lot of clarity, You want people to know what's happening, what they're looking at, things like that. You know, always. Clarity, in my opinion, is number one concern, at least for me. If not having clarity is the purpose, then that's okay. At this point, I'm just kind of rambling. All right, I think that was an okay introduction to value on the face. I might make another video depending on the needs of my students, but for now, I'm satisfied with this. Here, got in face coming through here. Bah. All right. I will catch you guys in the next video.